All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. I mean, look, most of you probably stare at a standard hamburger bun and think the tiny little seed sitting right there on top is, what, just some cheap, flavorless decoration, like it's just an aesthetic choice, right? Well, if that's what you actually think, you are completely missing the fact that you're staring at a high-fat survival crop that literally changed the course of history. Today we're going to break down the completely drought-proof legacy of sesame, because honestly, the real history and the biological secrets of this plant, it served as a vital energy bank for millions.
So seriously ask yourself for a second, are those expensive, beautifully packaged store-bought seeds actually any better? You might think you're being super savvy buying some premium sesame at the grocery store. But let's be real. It's a bit absurd to pay massive commercial markups for these tiny little jars. The reality is, a lot of people just view seeds as cheap commodities. Yet the premium market will charge you an absolute fortune for something that is, at its core, a high-calorie survival plant. And the kicker? You can easily grow it for free at home. Why on earth would you pay a premium when you can completely bypass that markup and grow a superior high-fat food source right in your own backyard dirt?
Now, to really grasp what this plant is, you've got to understand its journey. First off, sesame absolutely did not originate in the Americas, not even close. Its roots trace way back to Africa, well before the 1500s. And from there, right around the 1600s, it was carried across the ocean, actually enduring the horrific Middle Passage transit to the West Indies. By about 1700, it finally reached North America. Enslaved Africans brought this exact seed with them. And listen, it wasn't carried across the Atlantic as some sort of luxury item. It was brought over as a critical, essential piece of botanical heritage meant for absolute survival in a totally unknown, harsh world.
Which brings us to an absolutely crucial point, the name itself. Look, most of you probably just casually call it sesame, but its true historical name is actually bene. Bene is an African loanword, and it was used historically in places like South Carolina and the English Caribbean. And this wasn't just some linguistic quirk, it was a profound way for enslaved people to preserve the plant's true cultural identity. Think about it. In a harsh, oppressive new world that literally stripped away almost everything else, holding on to the name bene served as a deeply powerful African cultural marker.
And that kicks off this just absolutely fascinating cultural transition. Because when beans first arrived in the Americas, it was heavily dismissed by wealthy plantation owners. The elites totally looked down on it. They brushed it off as mere slave cuisine, assuming it was something to be relegated entirely to the dooryard gardens of the enslaved. But here is the incredible part. It didn't stay there. Over time, this tiny seed stealthily infiltrated the mainstream, shifting all the way from a dismissed survival food into what is now an absolute pillar of Southern food identity.
So how exactly did that stealthy infiltration happen? Well, it's pretty simple. The plant's incredibly rich, nutty flavor was just too good to be ignored. It surreptitiously made its way onto the grand dining tables of those same plantation owners entirely through the brilliant, highly complex dishes prepared by enslaved cooks. They inherently knew the incredible value and the flavor profile of bene, and they actively used it to fundamentally shape the regional cuisine, completely bypassing the initial prejudices of the elites.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about why this specific plant was so critical for actual survival. Because there is a biological glitch with this plant that is just mind-blowing. You get a massive 52 calories packed into just one single tablespoon of seeds. I mean, really think about that density for a second. In this impossibly small package, you are getting an incredibly efficient dose of healthy fats and calcium. When you are looking strictly at caloric efficiency for survival gardening, this tiny little seed is an absolute powerhouse.
Which leads us perfectly into disaster preparedness. Honestly, I'd challenge any skeptic's survival garden plan with just a really simple comparison. Let's look at your common, everyday garden crops. Tomatoes? Sure, they're great, but they have a massive water requirement and incredibly low caloric efficiency. Or what about a traditional oil source, like an olive tree? Well, that also requires a ton of water, takes literally years to grow, and only gives you moderate efficiency in a short-term crisis. But then, look at sesame. Right up there at the top. Its water requirement is very low. It actually thrives in dry, arid soil, and its caloric efficiency is very high. If a major drought hits, those water-heavy crops you planted are going to wither and die. But sesame? It will literally sit there in the dry dirt, baking in the heat, and happily produce high-fat calories for you.
Now, let me let you in on a little secret that's usually only known by expert gardeners.
It's actually not just about the seeds. If you really want to maximize your disaster preparedness beyond just the seed pods, you need to start looking at wild species like Sesame alatum, because with these specific wild variations, you can actually harvest the edible leaves for bonus survival nutrition that vastly increases the plant's value when we're talking strictly about caloric efficiency. You aren't just sitting around waiting for the seeds to dry out. You are actively utilizing the actual foliage of the plant itself.
So how do you actually execute this at home? Well, the steps are incredibly simple, but they are highly effective for supplementing your daily nutritional needs. Step 1. Just plant the seeds in dry, arid dirt. Seriously, they love the heat. Do not overwater them. Step 2. Harvest them at home so you can officially bypass those ridiculous grocery store markups we talked about earlier. And step 3, and this is the real culinary survival trick here, you use these densely packed 52-calorie per tablespoon seeds as a heavy, high-fat topper on light vegetables. If literally all you have is a low-calorie crop like squash, tossing a handful of Ben seeds right on top instantly boosts the calorie level and the nutrition of that otherwise super light meal.
So when you really put it all together, sesame, or bene, is just so much more than a cheap bun garnish. It is a living botanical legacy of the African diaspora. This is a plant that literally helped uprooted peoples secure their daily sustenance in the absolute most brutal of conditions. It quietly built the entire foundation of a massive regional cuisine, and today, it still serves as a completely drought-proof energy bank that you can literally grow right in your own backyard dirt.
It takes zero expensive equipment, it practically laughs at trouts, and it provides an unmatched density of healthy fats. So let's recap. A tiny seed that was carried across an ocean, completely dismissed by elites, and thrives in the absolute driest heat imaginable, is actually the ultimate survival oil substitute. I mean, now that's absolutely wild. But seriously, if a simple hamburger bun garnish holds this much secret survival power, it really makes you wonder what other overlooked crops are hiding right there in plain sight in your pantry.